What if there was a podcast that did it all? Sports, politics, world events. Well, that's what we've got. You're listening to C&C Talks.
Hello, I'm Colin.
And I'm Charlie.
And welcome to episode 23 of the C&C Talks podcast.
Just a reminder, as we do every week, we release every Tuesday and we talk about politics, world events, and sports. It is currently Monday, November 14th, 2022, at about 8 p.m. Pacific time.
And at the time that we are starting to record this episode, the Eagles are losing to the Commanders. So we'll talk about that more later. We'll see if that game's final by the time we get to that. But coming up on this episode, as we mentioned, the NFL and college football. But first, let's start with the midterm elections, because I don't think that they were what a lot of people expected, Charlie.
No, certainly, I think there was a rather large expectation of a big Republican push coming into this election that has obviously not happened. Their wave was far less strong than we thought. They didn't win the Senate. They could still lose the House.
Yeah, and I think that at this
fail
point,
to gain possession of the House, shall I say?
Yeah, at this point, I think that the Republicans are almost certainly going to win the House, but it's going to be really close. It's going to be like a 3-seat majority or maybe a little bit more than that, but that's not much. And Kevin McCarthy is not known as a good leader. He's going to have a real difficulty managing that, if he even does manage to get enough votes to become Speaker of the House, Charlie.
Yeah, that's true. That could be a really big point of contention. And we also saw, as in terms of broader trends, a lot of the more extreme Trumpian-backed candidates really doing very poorly.
Yeah, and I think that it led to Mitch McConnell was actually, I think, very correct on this, which was that the Republicans lost the Senate because of candidate quality, right? They ran Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania against John Fetterman. That was a seat that the Republicans held. They lost that seat because Dr. Oz was just a terrible candidate. We've talked about him a lot on this podcast. He was a terrible candidate, and they lost the seat. In New Hampshire, they ran Don Bolduc, who is just completely crazy. They lost that seat. They had a real chance to get a pickup in New Hampshire. They failed because of that. In Arizona, they ran Blake Masters, another just absolutely terrible candidate. The Arizona GOP as a whole just completely in shambles right now. They ran Kari Lake for governor. Those are two extreme far-right people. They both lost their elections. They had a real chance to pick up a Senate seat in Arizona, had a real chance to hold that governorship in Arizona. They lost them both. Democrats won. Nevada, Adam Laxalt was their Senate candidate. Real chance for a pickup there against Catherine Cortez Masto. Did not happen because Laxalt is a terrible candidate. Hey, even in Georgia, we've talked about Herschel Walker numerous times on this podcast, just some real issues. That one's going to a runoff, but no matter what happens there, the Republicans will not be able to get Senate control. And Walker, let's be honest, he's not the favorite. He could still win, but it's an uphill battle for him.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and I think also, though, Charlie, your point about these Trumpian candidates, yeah, Trump did not do well with the candidates he endorsed, but someone who did very well this election cycle was Ron DeSantis.
That's true, he did.
So I'm wondering what you might think about how that might affect a potential primary, because we know that Trump now expected to announce his bid for the White House again in really like the next 24 hours, and DeSantis likely to challenge him. And we've already seen like the Murdochs have completely dissed Trump since the election because his strategy doesn't seem to be working, and we'll see if more Republicans do that. So I'm curious as to what you think about how that will affect the primary.
Yeah, I do definitely think it's interesting. This was a definite loss for Trump and a definite win for DeSantis. So we will see how that will play out. I do think for the time being, Trump still leads the party. But a couple of more problems like this, and I could definitely see the GOP finally giving up on Trump and going with DeSantis.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the problem here, though, Charlie, is that Trump is being super pro-Trump is not good in the general election. You're not going to win, but the Republican base, like their voters, for the most part, the overwhelming majority of them are behind Donald Trump. And so having a Trump endorsement in a primary is actually very important in the Republican Party, and I don't think it's going to cease to be that, because, right, he, like you said, he just has the most influence in the party, and it's not like he's going to give that up in the name of the good of the party, because we know he doesn't care about the Republican Party, he cares about himself.
Yep, and we actually have a couple of moving away from politics now. We actually have a couple announcements for you guys, and I'll hand that over to Colin, considering that the announcement is about something that he's doing.
Yeah, so the C&C Talks 5, we've talked about that a few times on this show, several times a week, 5-minute segment every morning, talking about everything that happened in the day or a couple of days before. That will be launching on November 28th, so stay tuned for that. That's in just a couple of weeks. Hey, you're listening to the C&C Talks podcast. This is episode mostly about election results, but we're gonna move on to sports now.
Yeah, and speaking of which, we have some breaking news. The Philadelphia Eagles' perfect season has ended. They've lost to the Washington Commanders by the final score of 32-21. And they're celebrating in Miami as the last undefeated team has lost.
Yeah, and that game's in Philly too. So Carson Wentz's return to Philly, that worked out pretty well for him.
Indeed, it did. Oh, that was a start by Wentz and not Heineke.
Actually, I'm not sure.
Heineke did play that game.
Heineke did play. Okay, so never mind. I take that completely back.
Wentz was there. He just didn't do anything.
Yeah. So no, a less than great return for Carson Wentz to the city of Philadelphia. Although I guess he didn't throw any interceptions, so that was good for him.
Actually, he had one on the last play of the game.
Let's move on to some other Week 10 scores from around the NFL. Seahawks lost to the Buccaneers in Germany, Charlie. So I'm wondering what you think of both of these teams, because the Buccaneers now on a couple game win streak. But the Seahawks get a loss, and yeah, in less great position in the NFC West. They're still in decent position.
I would say both teams, I would say for the Buccaneers, this was really a game that they needed to win. They did win it. I feel like they are beginning to steadily fix some of their problems, and I do think they're going to win the division. I think they might be able to be competitive. I wouldn't start saying all of a sudden, okay, they're going to be really, really good, because they're not. I don't think they're going to be one of those super good teams that goes on to win the Super Bowl, but I do think they're starting to look better. And
I mean, Charlie, here's the thing, right? Is that it doesn't take much to get out of the NFC South to win that division. And when you're Tom Brady in the playoffs, I'm not going to bet against him, right? How can you? We've tried that; it hasn't worked.
Yeah.
So it was the NFL's first game in Germany. What did you think about that? Was it something that they should continue trying to do?
Yes, I do. I think they should continue its expansion. A lot of the fans seem to have great interactions. I think it was a great show, great game too. Actually, fairly close the whole way. Didn't have a lot of scoring, but there was a couple of great plays in there. It was a really great game overall, and I think that the NFL should continue trying to expand its range to the continent of Europe.
Yeah, I mean, you saw, like, we could see just how popular it was among the fans there. The one problem that there may have been was actually, though, the quality of the field, Charlie. It looked like everyone was just kind of slipping up all the time.
Yeah,
did not
there's
look
that.
like the safest conditions. So if I was the NFL, I guess I would kind of have to say, yeah, we'll come back, but we either need to use a different stadium or you need to make some improvements to your field.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the Vikings beat the Bills in Germany. So first of all, Charlie, was this the game of the year?
You mean in OT, not in Germany?
Sorry. Yes, in OT. So was this the game of the year?
It might be. I don't think. I think we still have a lot of football still to play. But as of now, this is definitely the game of the year. Justin Jefferson's catch that should have been an interception was incredible. Both teams played great. It's unfortunate for me anyway that Buffalo lost, but really great game, and I hope to see a lot more of that in the NFL so far for the rest of this year.
Yeah, Justin Jefferson, though, doing a great job of following up Stephon Diggs in Minnesota, and he now got to face Stephon Diggs, and his team came out on top.
In other games, shall we say, there wasn't as much action. The Titans beat the Broncos with Wilson throwing a game-sealing interception, and every other second half possession ended in a punt for the Broncos. And
yeah, Charlie, did you call it a game though? Because
why is it always the Broncos?
well, it's Russell Wilson, right? There's not another explanation. They have the worst offense in the NFL, and I know that they could just be, oh well, I'm saying it. No, statistically, they literally have the worst offense in the NFL. They score the least points per game. If they could score exactly 18 points in regulation of every game, they would be 8-1. Instead, they're, I believe, 3-6, Charlie.
Yes.
I mean, that says two things. It does say that their defense is really, really good. But it also says that, yeah, there's some issues there with the offense. And, I mean, I don't think that their head coach has done a good job so far. But, I mean, Russell Wilson, it's been a bad year. It's been a bad year, and I see it continuing. And he's under contract for many more years, and they're stuck without many draft picks this year either. So unclear what the future of that team is going to be. In other news, though, the Steelers beat the Saints. What's going on there, Charlie?
I really thought the Steelers' defense was really starting to function properly again. Saints didn't have a great game. Steelers did, so that's why the Steelers got the win. I don't really have a lot to say about that game. I don't think I saw really any interesting things out of that game. But the Saints just continue to go backwards. And as we were saying, the NFC South is such a weak division that really they still even might have a shot at winning that division. Probably not. But if they go on a run, I could see them maybe clawing their way back in. But Kamara hasn't been great. They don't really have a solid person at quarterback. So I just don't see them going anywhere for the time being.
And I mean, and we knew at the beginning of the year that the Panthers and the Falcons would be bad, but we thought that the other two teams in that division would really be kind of battling it out for the top. That just hasn't happened whatsoever. We'll see what happens there. Well, the Colts beat the Raiders. It's the first win for interim head coach Jeff Saturday. What did you think about the hiring of Saturday, Charlie?
I was questioning it, but it seems to have worked for now. Admittedly, it's the Raiders. They're not great. I don't remember the name of the Colts' new quarterback, but he seems to be doing all right. That offense is starting to get underway again, and their defense held up. Not much I can say about that one, but if this trend continues, I think they might continue on with Saturday for a few more seasons.
Yeah, I mean, I can't make much of Saturday as a coach through one game, but I do feel like the hiring decision is questionable. Yes, I get that he's a former player there, but it's again another slap in the face to black coaches that they won't get hired. There were options in-house for the Colts. Instead, they went with somebody outside of the organization, which is very rare for for hiring a coach mid-season, an interim coach, and someone who had no coaching experience at the college or NFL level, head or assistant coach. So we'll see if it does pay off. but it was still a very questionable decision, and it leaves, I feel like, a lot to be desired from the NFL in terms of equality.
Yep.
Moving on, the Packers beat the Cowboys. We've roasted the Packers a lot here, but is this a good sign for them?
It's a good sign, but it doesn't matter. They're
I mean,
still
we know
not.
that the Vikings are going to win that division. Like,
They're
that's pretty
still.
much over.
They're still not going anywhere. I know that all the Packers fans are going to be saying, "See, we proved everyone wrong. We're going to go on a run." I just don't see it happening. I don't know what happened to Dallas. There was a I think a pretty poor coaching decision that they had within Packers territory towards the end of the game where they decided to go for it. I think it was in overtime. They decided to go for it on fourth down when the field goal was easily available to them, and that could have definitely swung how the game ended. So I don't think it's time to start celebrating if you're a Packers fan. The loss streak is over, but I just don't see them going anywhere for this season.
Is it time to be concerned about the Cowboys then?
I would argue yes. The Packers, especially for the Cowboys, a team like the Packers, you should not be losing to. Dak just looked terrible, especially in clutch situations. That offense that we thought was really starting to ramp up just didn't have enough, and then that decision to go for it on fourth down and overtime really sealed the game for them. So
Yes.
I wouldn't really start to panic, but I will say that their chances of winning that division are really starting to slip away.
Although they may have just got better with the Commanders beating the Eagles somehow.
Yeah, but they're behind the Giants.
They are behind the Giants. Also, let's remind everybody that the Cowboys will lose in the first round of the playoffs because that's what they do. Guaranteed. Then the Cardinals beat the Rams. The Rams, Charlie, they're now in last place in the NFC West. These are the Super Bowl champions, defending Super Bowl champions. What's happening?
I mean, everyone thought they're building a team that's going to last 1 year. They're going to win the Super Bowl, and then they're going to slowly start to fall apart. They've fallen apart way faster than anyone thought they would. I predicted that they were going to win, and then they were going to fall apart. I think a lot of other people did. But wow, I just did not expect a collapse this instantaneous, and just this absolute disaster for them. But I do think
Well, I mean, also, Charlie, when you look at that team, though, it has so many of the same pieces that were so crucial to last year's Super Bowl team, which, given that and the weakness of the NFC this year, had me thinking that this was a team that could make a deep run into the playoffs. But that hasn't materialized. And again, they have such a good, allegedly good core group of players, but they just haven't been producing. And now Cooper Kupp's out for a while with an injury.
yeah. And then one of the only other NFC West team was the 49ers, who beat the Chargers on Sunday night. What are your thoughts on that, Colin?
The Chargers have been letting me down this year. The Chargers, at the beginning of the year, I felt like this was a team that could really make a run at the Chiefs for the AFC West title. I still had the Chiefs winning that division, but I gave the Chargers a real shot that it would come down to like the last week of the season. That just hasn't materialized whatsoever.
I mean, to be completely fair to you, at the very in our little we had a talk a few days before the season, just discussing how we thought things would go, and I had the Broncos winning that division. So you're doing better than I am, at least.
That is true. I called from the very beginning that the Broncos would suck. I didn't know they'd suck this bad, but I knew they would suck. But no, the 49ers look good. The 49ers look like a team that could win the NFC West. I think that there's going to be a crucial game between the 49ers and the Seahawks on Thursday Night Football on December the 15th. That's in a month from the date that this episode we think is getting released.
And is that in Seattle or in San Francisco?
That'll be in Seattle, actually, and I believe that I am going to be at that game, actually.
Well, Colin, have fun with that.
And hopefully it'll go the way that we want it to, but also I've enjoyed some stress-free football this year because I have no expectations for the Seahawks. Some other scores from around the league: the Panthers beat the Falcons, the Lions beat the Bears, the Chiefs beat the Jaguars, the Dolphins beat the Browns, and the Giants beat the Texans. Let's move on to college football. Week 11, just 2 weeks left of the regular season after this. Let's get Charlie to some of the games that happened.
Yeah. Oh, I think probably the most important local game for us was number 25 Washington upsetting number 6 Oregon. That ended Oregon's playoff hopes essentially, and Washington is 3-3 against Oregon in their last 6 matchups, and the point differential there was plus 70.
Yeah, plus 70 they were 3-3 in their last 6 matchups against each other, and Washington's plus 70. And let's remember also that Washington won this game by 3. So in other words, over 5 matchups in which Washington won 2 of, they had a point differential of plus 67. That's honestly just absurd. Well, number 4 TCU beats number 18 Texas. So is TCU really playoff bound? Because what a year they're having.
Yeah, I would say if they keep winning, then yes.
I don't really see a path for the committee to leave TCU off if TCU goes 13-0. Especially since Ohio State and Michigan have a game coming up. That game's going to be crucial for deciding the playoff, but right, one of those 2 teams has to lose at some point. TCU doesn't. They might, but they don't have to. While some other games, number 8 Alabama, they beat number 11 Ole Miss. Arizona upset number 12 UCLA. For 22 UCF, actually, they upset number 17 Tulane. So UCF, Cincinnati, and Tulane, they all control their destinies for the AAC championship, which would likely bring with it an appearance in the Cotton Bowl. Meanwhile, Vanderbilt, Charlie, they beat number 24 Kentucky. That's their first conference win since 2019, and it came against a ranked team.
Wow, good for Vanderbilt.
Yeah, so the conference championship games now coming up in a few weeks. A couple of them have already been set. The ACC will be Clemson versus North Carolina. SEC, LSU versus Georgia. We also know that TCU has clinched a spot in the conference championship game from the Big 12. Well, Charlie, the World Cup's beginning this week. What are your predictions?
I have no idea. I don't watch soccer.
Really?
No, I don't. I should watch more than I do because I don't watch any. But what about you? Do you have any thoughts on this?
There's a lot of teams that I could see winning. My gut says somebody from Europe because that's what always happens. I'll go with Germany, honestly. Some soccer fan out there will have to tell me if it's a dumb pick. I watch a little bit of soccer, but I don't closely follow soccer. Yeah, we shall see what happens. But yeah, that's starting this Sunday with the Qatar, who's the host, playing Ecuador. Just kick off the tournament. Team USA in their group will be facing Wales, England, and Iran. And Charlie, there's been some controversy here because Qatar, which is the host, had significant human rights abuses, and I believe something like 6,500 migrant workers died during the construction of their stadiums in Qatar.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's a big storyline that you really hope that gets discussed throughout the entirety of the World Cup. Very questionable decision why Qatar even has the World Cup, and it comes down to money. Let's move on to the NBA, Charlie, because some very interesting teams out there right now. Talk about a few of them. Let's start with the Lakers, actually, though. What's going on?
They're bad.
Yeah, and is it unexpected though to you?
Not really. After the absolute disaster that was last season, they didn't really improve very much, and they're just as bad as they were last year.
I'll say this though, which is Russell Westbrook has looked not bad at all. We've also discussed the Brooklyn Nets, but they've actually been better without Kyrie Irving while he's been serving out his suspension. So Charlie, it raises the question whether the Nets, do you think that they should just move on from Kyrie?
Possibly. I would say if he ever comes back from his suspension, I would say maybe they should see if they can trade him. I do think you might be able to get a pretty good package for him.
I feel like just in terms of playing skills, yes, but he's clubhouse poison. No one really wants him. You requested this time to talk about the Golden State Warriors because they're not a team that I really want to talk about right now. So I'll let you talk.
All I'm gonna say about them is they haven't won on the road. Colin's not happy. They're bad. Let's move on to the Utah Jazz.
Yeah, they're surprisingly good after trading away pretty much all of their key pieces this offseason. Another team that's really surprisingly good so far has been the Portland Trail Blazers. So both of those teams, Charlie, are they for real or is it just a fluke about a dozen games in and that we'll see correct itself?
Well, that's the question that everyone's asked you right now, and of course we can't answer that question because we're still only looking at it from the 12-game mark perspective. So we'll have to check on that in a few weeks and see how that progresses.
Yeah, and we are going to try to get a couple of guests on here in the next couple of weeks to talk about the NBA season so far. Let's go ahead and wrap up this show about the Formula One Grand Prix.
Yes, the penultimate round of the Formula One 2022 World Championship at Sao Paulo in Brazil. It is a sprint weekend, so there's a short race on Saturday before the full race on Sunday. And qualifying in the rain saw a absolutely insane qualifying section. We had cars in the gravel, and we had a Haas of Kevin Magnussen on pole position, first of his career, first for the team ever. Of course, it didn't last long in the sprint race. He got passed by the Ferraris, the Red Bulls, the Mercedes, and Lando Norris to finish 8th. And then his race ended on lap 1 after contact with Daniel Ricciardo. But it seems to be that Haas is slowly starting to trend up, which I'm actually a Haas fan, so that's great news for me. But we'll see how that development continues in the next season. And as for the race itself, for the first time since Austria, since Austria, actually, yeah. Since Austria, on July 10th, a non-Red Bull car actually won the race. It was a Mercedes 1-2 led by George Russell, followed by Lewis Hamilton, and then I believe third was Carlos Sainz, followed by Leclerc. Verstappen was 5th, and Perez was 6th, and I don't remember the rest of the grid from there. But we have one more round left in Abu Dhabi this weekend, and that's it for the season, and we will return at the first week of March in Bahrain for the new season. 24 races, biggest season ever. So after Abu Dhabi, I'm looking forward to that. And I don't think Colin really cares very much, so I don't think he'll have anything to say about that. But the one thing I did want to comment, not about Formula One, but something that we didn't mention was Julio Rodriguez. We haven't talked about the Mariners in a while. He won the AL Rookie of the Year. That's pretty cool. We'll see how the Mariners do next season. Anyway, I think we're out of time. And
next week we will talk more about the MLB awards as they do continue to trickle in. I believe that all of the awards will probably be announced by the end of next week, so we shall see.
So anyway, don't forget to subscribe. We have episodes every Tuesday, everywhere you listen to our podcast.
Also, make sure to visit our website, cctalks.net, which has everything that you need to know about the show. Also, call us with your questions, 360-389-2630. Again, that's 360-389-2630.
And follow us on Twitter at CC Talks Podcast. And for our Morris, our producer, Zack, our production designer, and Drake, our co-writer, thank you for listening. I'm Charlie.
I'm Colin. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next week.